All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Real Raw and Resilience. Joining me today is Dylan Gee.
G.
Hello. Thank you for being G.
Yeah.
So
It's
G
okay.
like well, thank you for joining us. We want to talk today about a very important issue that really statistic wise, I've done a lot of research on this. And men are more likely to die by suicide due to mental health. Um, Not that men are more likely to fall in anxiety or depression or serious illness, but they're more likely to die by suicide because it's such a cliche. It's a stigma that men should not talk about their mental health. So as we talk about men's mental health, we're going to talk about the fathers that matter. That's a big issue. Like I was telling you before we got on here, me and my husband do this as a uh, kind of a military resource. We don't do it for money. We don't do it for anything except for knowledge, information, resources, people to connect with, people to get in touch with, because it has become such a huge problem, especially even in the military. We have a lot of people that reach out to me, their fathers, that are actually the military spouse, and they don't know how to handle, they don't know who to go to, they don't know who to talk to, because it is, men are supposed to be tough. Men are supposed to not have feelings and not supposed to be able to cry and break down. And that's just really and truly not what it is. So that's why we're joining you. You run a Facebook page called Fathers Matter,
Yep.
based here out of Florida.
Yep. Right in
Let,
Pensacola.
let's get into that. Let's talk about your situation, kind of what got you started with the Facebook group. We'll go from
Okay.
there.
Yeah. So it's been a big challenge for me. A lot of things I have unknowingly chose to ignore in my life. That's with the whole stigma of you got to be tough, you got to be strong. You're a man, and that all plays from my childhood. My father was like that. If I tried to come express to him, it was shut up, I'll bat you in the mouth, don't be soft. Um, but there was a time, recently, a past couple weeks, where me and my now fiance, she's, pregnant. She's due March 13th. I'm having my first daughter. Um, Thank you. We've had a rough year. We've had a really, really rough year. Um, Unfortunately so. And it took a lot. It took almost losing this family now to understand that, the things that were causing and seeding problems in our relationship was my inability to open up and express and really come off my chest on what's inside of me. And, me shutting her switches on, my switches off, and me switching off, ultimately turns her switch on. And that all comes from not being able to be comfortable enough to open up. Because I feel like if I did that, I was considered weak. I wasn't a man. I wasn't manly. I wasn't the part in life that I'm supposed to be at. So I always just held that in. But I've understood, I took like a week off in silence. I started praying to God. I started looking for answers. And I really realized that, I had to take accountability and really step forward and try to openly express, what I battle with and what I struggle with, which is a mix of depression, anxiety, the ultimate thought of failing as a father, as a parent. And, I was at the point where I was almost going to lose my family because I wasn't able to open up and talk and express my pain. And which I get it because I kind of let her to feel abandoned at that point because I wasn't able to give her that. And it has rooted so many problems where it got me so bad into a depression where I couldn't appreciate my relationship because I was so engulfed into all the negative, to all the downs, to all the side effects of where everything came from. And I wanted to take that step and to try to, be strong and openly express that and come forward in a public manner. Um, and try to reach out and maybe help somebody else to not get to where I have been or help somebody who is in my position so that way they don't have to continue doing that alone. But in that journey, I felt like me trying to reach out and help another man, because I know I'm not the only person that battles it. I can search and I can find and I can help heal and fix that for myself, on an open perspective and understanding other people's point of views. Because I was thinking in my head, it's harder for me to understand myself when I'm the only person talking to myself. And if I could reach out and hear these stories and talk to these people and understand a different point of view, understand the other sides of it that I may not have experienced, maybe I can better help my journey. So then I started the Fathers Matter group because, I have 10 years of fighting for kids. That was a big part. And then I just genuinely started caring about myself because I know how it feels. And there's been times where I was at the end of that barrel. There was times where I was at that point where I didn't want to continue. You know, I couldn't do it alone. Thank God I never did. Thank God it never got to that. Because I could never come to the I could never come to the idea of abandoning my children in such a bad way. And I don't ever want to get back to that because my kids matter. They look at me like I'm God. They love me. I love my kids. And so I started the group to try to prevent that because I know kids need their fathers. And I know how bad it is to be in that situation and that mindset. And I just wanted to try to set out and make a difference, for myself. And like you said before, if we can save at least one person, that's that's a blessing. Obviously we'd love to save everybody, but if we can at least get one person to turn around, one person out of the slump, that's the main purpose of it. And I've seen a lot of groups where it's just mostly social media, um, just social media platforms for them to express. And I'm trying to be a little different and I want to make a facial appearance. So I started the group to have weekly meets.
Connection.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Actually, to get connection with
Yeah,
people.
yeah, at the face to face because it's one thing to do it over social media. Sometimes it kind of feels a little awkward to, talk to a Facebook post or write a message. And, a lot of times they're not explained the way you want to, trying to type something out. And I feel like it's a little bit more comfortable if I can look at you face to face and I can take accountability and I can openly discuss, the things that I go through to another random person with no thought of judgment or anything. And I'm definitely trying to take those steps first to try to help encourage other people to say, okay, this man can do it. He can come on a podcast and openly expose these problems, and knowing that just that alone is the hardest battle.
Well, I do know from my own experience, my perspective as a wife. When me and my husband first got together, it was very hard to get him to open up. He had been in a toxic relationship for 6 years
Yeah,
that pretty much he wasn't to express how he felt. If he did, he was less of a man. He
yeah,
was, you know, he wasn't anybody. His feelings didn't matter. His emotions didn't matter. What he done for that day didn't even matter. So it really changed even the course of his life. He wanted to join the Army National Guard, and within 4 drills and weeks of being there, he got out due to that toxic relationship
yeah,
and changing his perspective. That was more important on fixing the relationship he had with her than fixing himself.
yeah,
So with that, he comes out of it and then turns into a full blown alcoholic. And this went on for approximately about, I'd say 6 to 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. And when we met, he was very closed off. He didn't talk a lot. He really, it just, his problems became the end of a bottle.
yep,
Well, he was a beer drinker, not really whiskey, but still, I mean, the end of a bottle is the end of a bottle. Don't care how you look at it.
yeah,
He never got into drugs or anything, but he was an avid drinker, and it became such a socialite for him that was his go-to. That was his rescue. That was his thing to do. Don't worry about it. My dogs are barking too. Uh,
um I don't
but
know, it's like, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, once we met and got to talking, it really makes a difference to have a spouse that will communicate with you, open up with you. You open up with them. Um, Now he's in the Navy. I mean, everything changed. We got married. Uh, just he really opens up to me, sits down. If he's even if his finger hurts, I mean, hey, my finger hurts. It's a bit different than just grin and bear it, bite the bullet, and walk on.
Yeah,
Um, he's really done a complete 180, and his whole life has changed. He's quit
yeah,
drinking. He's in the Navy. We live in Florida. We're from Tennessee.
yeah,
I mean, communicate. He's let go of friends that were kind of in that toxic era. He's let go of people that kind of held him back and just really turned his whole life around. And I mean, just knowing him today, if you'd have known him then and known him today, it's two totally, totally different people. So mental health does make a huge difference in being able to communicate, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, or your spouse. I mean, anybody. And if you don't
yeah.
have that spouse that you can communicate with, that causes a bigger issue.
I completely agree. From personal experience, just going through a lot of things, not woman bashing or anything like that. I just feel like a vast majority of women don't really understand the effects of the things that we go through as men. And, probably from experience, like with your husband, he went through so many years of a toxic relationship and, he got into a healthy one and not knowing how to healthy communicate. But in those moments, I know from my experience where, I try to talk or I try to reach out to my partner, and not having a person understanding what you battle, and then not understanding yourself and how to explain certain things. So sometimes, like when you do reach out, it may not always be in the tone, a good tone. It may not always be correct. It may not always be the perfect words. And I think, spouses lose sight, like to try to understand the bigger point. Like, I get it. And let me put my feelings to the side. I know he has a hard time expressing, and I know he may have came off in a, not an aggressive manner, but not something in a way that they may like, but understanding like he is trying to open up and he is trying to express. And I think ultimately that leads back to, men closing off, because they try to make that step and talk openly about how they feel or traumas or things they've been through. And then, they try to reach out in any type of way they know how to. And then a spouse takes it as they're attacking them, or they're always complaining. And it's not always like that. It's no, a six always looks like a nine from the other side.
Exactly.
And from that side, from my perspective, I've reached out as much as I can, and not understanding myself, I don't know how to explain it for someone else to properly understand, unless they can understand that as a man with a troubled background or a troubled youth, we're just trying to find anything just so we can start that process. But I feel like ultimately in a relationship, once that first process is shut down, which I'm not saying all spouses do it like purposely, but in that moment, once he's shot down that first time, when he tries to express the only way he knows how, it becomes an insecurity. It becomes, nerve wracking, filled with anxiety to try to keep doing that, because it's like, man, I don't know how to do it, but when I do it, it's bad. So it kind of complements the fact of men shouldn't open up, because when they try to, it's a negative return. So then it just goes back to closing off. And then, I'm surprised most men don't have lupus at 20, 40 years old because of the stress they hold inside of them.
Due to the
You know,
Fortunately, I get where you're coming from. That fortunately, I was raised by a single father.
yeah,
That has helped me as far as understanding of men in general. Not to say I'm an expert, because God knows I'm not. I've had some pretty failed relationships myself. Um,
yeah,
it it kind of what you said. It's not so much of sometimes the man not opening up. Sometimes the spouse is not reciprocating back and understanding, okay, this is their first time talking, this is their first time opening up to me. Maybe they don't know how to do it just yet, but let's work through it. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of
Yeah,
women, if I don't know if you've ever read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or even heard about it. It come out
I
back,
have.
and that was simply one of the best books I had ever heard written ever about men and women. And one
Yeah.
of the things in there really caught me years and years ago, and it was the wife come in, she's, doing her normal routine, and then the husband comes in. They're both coming in from work. And when he comes in, he says, "Man, I'm tired." All he says. Now, to him, he's meaning, "Man, this was a rough day. I'm just really tired." Not that he ain't going to get anything done that he's supposed to be doing or whatever. That was just him expressing. And the
Yeah.
woman instantly takes it as, "Oh, well, I guess he worked harder than I did today. And I guess I'm going to be the one cleaning and cooking and doing everything tonight. And he won't even take out the trash." So mentally, women are just, so the woman aspect of it is the woman is raised and it's embedded into her that men are the caregivers. Men are the ones that, go out, make the money, and do what they're supposed to do to make the family happen.
Hmm.
And the other aspect, the man's taught that's what you do. It doesn't matter how broke you are. It doesn't matter if your leg's falling off. You get out there and do what you got to do, and
Yeah.
not raised to where, hey, if you have feelings, express them. Hey, if
Yeah.
something's going on, express them. My grandmother used to tell my dad all the time, "Son, what's wrong? What's going on? Talk to me. I need to know what's going on." So therefore, I had a father that sometimes would keep things to himself, but most of the time, if, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" he would talk to me. So I
Hmm.
was kind of on both aspects of it, of being, a female, being raised that people do have emotions, people do have feelings. And on the other hand, I still had a single strong dad that, no matter what, you got to get out there and still do it. I'm not saying to anybody, don't get out there and still do it, but come home and be able to talk to somebody. Even if you have to pick up that phone and call a crisis hotline,
Yeah.
just to talk to somebody because something is bothering you and you don't know what, do it. I mean, it makes a world of difference in the whole outlook of the rest of your day.
Yeah. Oh man. And that's took me so long to understand that. And like, from my childhood, most of the people in my family, they weren't always the best. There was a lot of drugs involved, in and out. My dad was always in and out, wasn't around. Everything good, always left. Luckily, my grandmother was the solid stone of my family for the most part. She was the most positive person when I was around her. But it's hard to do that, and it's hard to talk. And years ago when I had my first son Nolan, he's 10 now. Me and his mom split up when she was 3 years old, and there was a lot of encouragement from her family because they came from a healthy, good background.
Hang on one
I
second,
wasn't
it's
approved
showing
of because I
reconnected.
didn't come from such background. But with our problems, the relationship ended, and that broke me knowing that I wasn't going to be able to raise my son in a two-person home. That broke me because I wasn't going to be able to be there for him. And I just bottled everything up. And I turned to alcohol. I drank every single day. I didn't go to work for a month and a half. And that's not like me because I've worked since I was 11 years old. But, when I first got a little glimpse of it, I remember this day like it was yesterday. I was at my mother's house. It was the same routine. I get up at like 11 or 12. I'm just
Hang on one second, it's popped up that stop your recording had stopped due to low storage. um
hold on. I can clear something out.
okay, well, oh, you're fine.
Clear up some. This should help. Okay, there we go. All right, we good now.
Yeah, we're
But
good now.
so I remember the day she came to pick my mom up. I had just drank a whole fifth of Fireball, and I was in my feelings, and my sister looked at me and she just kind of, asked me if I was okay. And for the first time in my whole entire life, I broke down. I bawled like a little girl. I hit my knees. I couldn't move. I started crying. Like, I acknowledged my depression. Like, I was in a bad rut. I tried to do it. I loaded my gun up and I was going to end everything. I couldn't because I have so much love for my mom. She was at the house, and I started thinking about my kids. I can't let my mom find me like this. I don't want my kids waking up knowing that their dad took the easy way out. And that was like a big breaking point for me. And, throughout time, I had to deal with that. I got back up, got back to it, went back to work and kind of try to find myself and end up going through the same thing. A woman came into my life and told me these great things, and it became another problematic relationship. And, it was kind of all over again. But at that point, it was, I didn't want to open up anymore. I didn't want to express because, I did a little bit with my other son's mom, and it seemed like it always came back to me. And I battled that. I battled that so much. And my fiance now, she's always telling me, you got to talk to me, you got to open up. And I hear her, and I felt like I was, and my own ignorance, I felt like I was, just because we had conversations. And sometimes just a regular conversation about a day is not opening up. I needed to like uproot those main problems with me, and why I'm triggered with things, and why I shut down, and why I get into these moods, and to openly discuss those with her, because if not, it's gonna bury you. And it has buried me so many times, time and time again. And it is
That
hard, and I agree. Pick up the phone, call somebody. It don't matter if you call 911 just to have a conversation with the operator. And that's the whole point of why I started that the Fathers Matter, was because I don't want nobody to be at that low point. We do have the, support group chat, and, the page is the page, that's just the starting point of it. And that's why I wanted to get in touch. Like, man, if you really feel like you're at that moment, hell, you can write me a message. I'll come meet you. I'll come to your house. I'll come give you a hug, man, because I know there's been many times I just needed a hug. I just needed to know someone cared or understood me just a little bit.
And sometimes when you're at that point, one good thing I do want to point out, um, you're right about a conversation. A conversation is just a conversation. But if a woman is willing to say, hey, you've got to open up and talk to me, you're going to have to open up. You're going to have to dig way down deep and open up
Hmm.
and talk to this person. They're at that point crying for help for you, from you.
Yeah.
So, with
And
that said, I think it's really important to have that support system, to
yeah,
have, like you're saying, the group starting, and just at any time reach out. I mean, my phone line's usually always open. I've got, my podcast. Of course, I keep my phone line open because my husband being in the Navy and being gone right now, I'm afraid I'll miss a call, so I freak out.
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
but the sobering statistics of it is men men are just, the world, not men. The world is just not in with the whole men's mental health. It's something nobody hardly talks about. It's something, and so you have that stigma. Well, I'm supposed to be feeling good today. I'm supposed to be able to work all day and then come home and play with the kids, and love on my girlfriend, my wife, my fiance, boyfriend, whatever they have, and
yeah.
and that's it. There's no in betweens.
Nope.
I'm so glad that you started this group for people to reach out. And I do want to mention Saturdays here locally in Pensacola, correct?
Yeah, we do. So I just had a guy write me in the support chat that we have through the group, which I didn't really, this is still all fresh. When I first initially made it, this it was a major reach out for help, um, for myself, and it really was. And like, I did want to help other people, and I didn't expect it to really grow like that, but Anyways, the guy wrote me, and I didn't take into consideration. He said that his son usually has sports on Saturday, which my oldest son, he's very active in sports. We did it last week, Saturday at 8:30 a.m. I'm thinking about switching it to Sunday on 8:30s, so that way all the fathers, most sporting events happen on Saturday. So we're probably going to switch it, and next week we're going to start Sunday at 8:30 at Bayview Park. There's a dock down there next to the main building. That's where we met last time. It's a nice views by the water, kind of out of the way. And there's enough room for when it does grow, 20, 30, 40, 50 people. We have enough room for everybody. And we're going to do that weekly, and then maybe once a month or every other week have a father-child event where kids, fathers bring their kids. We allow the kids to make new friends, and also see that fathers do show up. Fathers are here, and we do show up even when we are all dealing with things, even when we are down, even when we are sad. We still put the boots on and we still get active.
And that's good too, for the fact, like military fathers. There's
Yeah.
military families are huge and they all support each other, but it's a lot more. I've noticed a lot of groups that I see. It's Navy wives support Navy wives.
Yeah.
There's that say Navy wives,
Segregation.
Navy dads, or
Yeah.
Navy. I mean, that's it. Everything is segregated out. You're right. And that's a huge problem that I've noticed. And that's why I wanted to reach out to you. It just kind of, a lot of these men, they're a military spouse.
Yeah.
They have to uphold a certain image.
Mhm.
So inside their community, they don't have resources to reach out. They don't have places or friends to go to, because the other military dads are egotistical and, hey, what's wrong with you? Or, you married a military woman and
Yeah.
you're a pussy. No, it's, they need somebody to talk to as well. So hopefully with this, there are, we're right here at Pensacola. We're right here at the naval base.
Yep.
um, I'm hoping to get some more reach out to where I can get them onto your group, to where they can meet up with their kids, while their wives are
Yeah.
deployed, or while their wives are in school or training or whatever's going on. I
Yeah.
think that
I feel like this hasn't been the thing that I've explored like with the military families, but from a civilian side looking in, my grandfather was a Navy war hero growing up, so I know the stigmatism of being in the military. But I feel like with military dads, the pressure is so much more intense because you're so surrounded by so much masculinity, and it's just like you know it's a tough chain length. And even like when you go into the service, they train you and beat you into being tough and strong and focused with no distractions. But part of that is ignoring your emotions, ignoring your pain, ignoring the inside things that matter because you have a duty. But the downfall of that is you're not able to intune yourself with your kids or your spouse because you are so filled with this. I'm a man. I got to be tough. I can't cry. I'll take a moment in silence on the way to work, or I'll take 10 minutes in the bathroom while the kids are playing. I'll compose myself for a minute, and I'll put my dad face back on, and I'll bury it deep down inside.
unfortunately that is all too true,
Yep.
all too true. And as a military spouse, we're made to, even me as a woman, we're made to be tough.
Yeah.
We
I mean, yeah.
tough situation. So I can only imagine what the military spouses as husbands or fathers have to go through.
Yeah.
Granted, military does have resources, but some of those you don't want to just really reach out to. That's a military community. You need
Yeah.
outsiders. You need fathers of every day. You need men of every day
Yeah.
that are dealing with this, going through this, that you can get together, support each other. And so I think it's great that you actually do that. Hopefully, this thing will get bigger, and it'll, there'll be um, at least once a month a big, huge group meeting.
Yeah.
I did see where the one guy does the workout thing. That's what
Yeah.
I was trying to look for, because
Uh,
I
he
told him I.
he just wrote me too. He's got a couple people that are come into the next meeting. next weekend. I'm actually gonna go out there Tuesday morning. I'm up early, like 4:30 every morning. Anyways, I leave for work pretty early, but I'm gonna make time where I can go and participate in his functions. Which it's like a father's workout group in the morning time. They do it 3 days a week or so. And then once on the weekend, they do dad's yoga as well, which is like, I know it's kind of funny for most guys. It's like, oh man, that's kind of soft dad yoga, but it's therapeutic, man, to really get in tune with yourself and try to silence your thoughts. But he does a great thing. They do a workout with dads every week. I will be there Tuesday to show up and support that, and maybe talk to some people about the group, and then the meetings on the weekends. And also show out that we're gonna. It's still new. I want to do once a month until everything gets rolling well. But I really, the big part of it is really having those father kid days where you know at the same time, I know the fathers that are following and listening, and myself, we're all battling stuff that we're trying to fix or correct, so we can appreciate and enjoy life and enjoy the happiness. But I think the deeper thing that is going on is that we're trying to prevent our kids from growing up and having that stigmatism of you got to be tough. You can be tough, but being more tough is being able to express yourself with no resentment, and knowing that dads do show up, because in a world that we live in now, we're just so unappreciated and undervalued. Even like through the court
Yeah,
systems, the the way it's laid out, we're just a paycheck and a part-time visitor. And even though you may not be doing wrong, you may not be a bad guy, alienation comes a big part. And the value of a father and the value of mental health is very bare minimum.
that is one thing that, oh man, it gets under my skin.
Yeah.
So just because you and your significant other split up, don't put the kids through it. Like
Yeah.
that's between y'all.
Yep.
Don't don't use your children as a crutch to get back at the father just because you're pissed at him, or the
Yep.
relationship didn't work out with him, or
Yep.
because he's got a new. Who gives a shit?
Yep.
Who cares? As long as he is treating your kids with dignity, respect, and being good to them,
Yep.
who cares what he's doing? Yeah, y'all are not together anymore.
Nope.
Do not put the kids through it. That is absolutely the worst thing in the world, and so traumatizing for kids to have to go through that. And I know
It
that from
is.
experience.
And yeah, and I do as well. With two of my kids, I know that. My oldest son, we went through it. We had our differences, and whenever we split up, it was an ugly court case for 6 years or so. But when she finally, moved on, she got married, she had other kids. We had a conversation one day, and she kind of opened up and apologized, like, I know I have caused damage. I know I have made it harder. Let's put all this aside. And I battled all that time, and I didn't even get equal custody. I've never been a drug addict. I've never been in and out of jail. I've always worked and had a home and provided. I've always been a healthy parent. Um, and we set that aside, and now we have a great relationship. Then I dealt with it with my younger son, where, after he was born, we agreed it was going to be an equal thing. We're not going to make it hard for each other. We had a big blowout, and a lot of things were said, in which I take accountability for it. I'm not just going to bash her and say she was the only one wrong. I know I had a tongue on me, and I know I said some bad things, but it enabled her to put her feelings in the mix and dictate how she did it. And even though we had agreed and we were so close to signing papers without the courts involved, she went and got a lawyer, and she did the most. And, even in court, I showed that she lied under oath 3 or 4 times, trying to make me look bad. I still got ramrodded with $30,000 back child support. I only get them every other weekend. That's all through the summer. She takes all my tax money. I can't claim my other kids to get that relief. She gets all of that, and then it became more of a I'm just money, and she just wants to take and make it as hard as possible as she can. And that's, oh man, the pain that comes from that is just, it's unbearable, and it's so hard to speak about. And
It's,
I'm becoming better to deal with it now and not be so hateful when I speak about it. I know she has done wrong, and she's been hateful, and she has caused me a lot of pain. But in the mix of that, trying to be better. I take accountability for the things I invested into it. But just the trauma of having a child used against you is devastating, because as a man growing up, the things that you're beaten to know is provide, protect, and do for your family, do for your kids.
And
Those are the.
I will say this, a lot of women don't understand it is absolutely hurting nobody but the kid.
Yep. Nope. And then another thing they don't realize is that um, when they grow up, those kids will understand the circumstances of what happened. And that resentment will gain. Not to encourage kids to feel some type of way about their other parent, but that's a natural act, because
That's
I love my mother to death. I do. But there's times where I was a kid, I remember, 6, 7, 8 years old, where she had me call my father and tell me I'm not his and I don't love him and I don't want to see him. And, because she was being so vindictive and using us to hurt him because of his bad choices. And I never thought about it until I had kids. And once I had kids, it hit me, was like, man, like, I understand why my dad is so messed up now in the head, why he's almost 60 years old and he's still doing drugs and, overdosing once a year. And it's like, dude, at some point you have to cleanse yourself and get better. And he was just never able to do that. But I can see where his problems has stemmed from. It stemmed from, battling life, battling his depressions, battling his trials and his encounters in things. And then on top of that, having his first son's mother having him call him and tell him these crazy things. And it's like,
right.
dude, I completely feel for you. That's just astronomical. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So therefore you see it from two different aspects. You see it from your father's point of view in firsthand what it did to him. And then you see it from your own point of view of firsthand of what it's doing to you.
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't get to see that. A lot of people just, oh, my dad wasn't there and my dad this and my dad that. And, it just, I can tell you from my point of view and my experience as far as my father never once got child support. He's raised me since I was 3 months old.
Yep.
He, my grandparents were there. I had a grandmother and grandfather that were amazing, but he did it all on his own. But he never once bashed my mom. He never once said anything bad about her. He let me figure it all out on my own once I got to the age to where I could. I
Yeah.
wanted to go as bad as it hurt me. He let because he didn't want me going to her house because he knew it was a toxic environment. He still let me because that's what I wanted
Yep.
until I was good enough to not want it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just one of those things, and it is a constant battle, and knowing, and it's even more heartbreaking on a dad. Well, I'm not going to say more, because there are cases where fathers end up having that other role, and females do experience it, but knowing that your child is an anchor to a toxic and problematic situation, and knowing that they're involving into it, and your kids are calling you saying, hey, I love you, I want to come see you, and knowing that that's not a possibility because there's so much bitterness behind the situation. And I feel like realistically we all hold a little bit of that. We all have hit that point where we just been filled with so much rage and anger, where we may have stumbled and caught ourselves, but realized, that's not the right way. We're going to cause more damage than anything if we do this. Let's stop and pump the brakes. And which is a natural thing. Those are emotions. Those are a natural thing. And
Right.
better understanding those. There's been points where um, dealing with fighting for my kids for so long, and then when I finally was able to get my son on a regular schedule, and he came over from being alienated so much, my son's comfort zone was his mom. And there was a point where got upset and he was, I just want to go to my mom's. And, this takes a lot to admit, but I kind of snapped was, you're not, I don't, excuse my language, you're not fucking going over there.
Hey,
And
this is real raw and resilience. We don't hold this
yeah,
in.
and it was like, you're not fucking going over there. And it took me like 20, 30 minutes to really understand what I was doing. It took me it took me back to where my mom called my dad and had me say those things. So it really took me back to a childhood experience. And I had to apologize. Like, son, I'm so sorry. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'll call your mom. We'll get you, to your mom's, and I'll just come pick you up another time. And it hurts to do that, but that's the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
I had to I had to really tone into that to understand that a lot better than I was at that moment, because I was there and I know what it's done to me mentally, and I don't ever want to put my kids there.
Right. Well, I do know, mental health comes along with the whole fathers matters.
Yes.
It's two totally different subjects, but at the same time, it's one subject. It's a lot of, like we said, stigma that's around it is people just want to talk about it. You're just supposed to suck it up. I know back years ago in the 70s and 80s, actually in the 70s, we won't talk about my age, but it wasn't for a judge to give a father a daughter, especially maybe a son, if they were lucky.
Yeah.
Um, but my dad fought really, really hard because he knew that was going to be a very bad and toxic
Yep.
life had I grown up with her. Plus, she really didn't care. She was willing to give me away anyway. But um, in that time, it's totally different, and people are starting to come out of their shell more. Now, it's more of what's best for the child, and that's where the whole situation needs to stem from. What is best for this child? I might hate the dad, but my son or my daughter
Well,
doesn't. That's
yeah.
their let that relationship bloom. I don't have to speak to them. I don't have to see them, and vice versa. But
Hmm.
child needs to stay connected. There needs to be good co-parenting communication when
Yeah.
parents are split up for their kids.
Yep.
I'm telling you, it makes such a world of difference if parents would co-parent.
Yeah.
They don't like each other. They don't have to look at each other. They don't even have to call each other. Make a mutual moderator between y'all, a brother, a sister, a grandmother, a friend,
Yep.
even. Hey, you're going to be our third wheel in this to kind of, until we can come to some type of agreement on
Yeah.
co-parenting.
Yeah.
And
I, you nowadays, from experience, you cannot solely rely on the state or the system to give you that, because you know last year, don't quote me on the dates, I may be a little wrong, but July 2nd, 2024, a bill was passed, and it's called the Good Dad Act, which in that act it states that 50-50 is in a child's best interest, until proven otherwise. So basically the whole thing of it was, if a father was trying to get his child, they go to court for it. There's an act called the Good Father Act, which installs the 50-50 is in the kid's best interest. And if that's not in the kid's best interest, the other parent has to prove why it's not in the best interest. Um, which, when I went through court, because this, with my youngest son, this all fell through last year. Um, Through that whole process, I didn't have no more money for a lawyer. I lost money for paying a lawyer 4 years in with my first son's case. I self-represented myself for the remaining years of that case, and it's been me the whole time with Ozias. So with that act in, I was like, man, I was feeling so encouraged. I was like, I got this. Like, this bill has passed. I'm not a bad dude. I have a house. I have a job. I have a car. I do everything I'm supposed to. I'm not some crazy person running around doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And we went to court. We went to mediation. She offered me a ridiculous deal, and I denied it. And we went to a magistrate, which a magistrate's not even a judge, but we went to a magistrate, and we put everything on the table. There was a situation where there's a dude, her mom let in the house, and my son hurt himself in his private area, and he was in the bathroom with him, and like checking him and stuff like that. That's an uncomfortable feeling. But there was so much to it where I like showed it. Like, I'm not trying to bash her, but I'm just trying to show that I'm not a bad dude. I'm not a bad father. There's nothing she has against me that can prove that. and we laid it into the court's hands. The magistrate made a decision, and I got ramrodded. I only get to see my son every other weekend. That's it. And now she had a lawyer, obviously, and she got a lawyer, and now she's able to dangle him over me. She takes all, I pay almost $800 a month. I have another son that I pay for. I have a daughter on the way that's going to pop any week. And I have three stepdaughters that I also take care of. One, her father's around, but I financially support the other two. And the courts don't take any consideration into that. I have 6 children inside my household when I have all my children, plus my fiance who don't work because she's as big as a shed right now. Um, and it's all on me, and they don't care to see that from a father standpoint. They just think, okay, we're going to get the government funding, write it off, let's get the child support, it really don't matter. And that's how it felt to me. And that has been a big punch. It's been a big punch in my chest, and that's been a big depression. That's been a big thing in my life that I deal with, in which, I know I'm obligated and I got to support my kids. That's understandable. But to exceed that and try to do the most and take everything and just give a father crumbs with their child. And it's like, that don't make no sense, because both parents in a relationship are just as important as the other. And I truly believe that. And like with a father, a good father is able to install things that a mother can't, you know, how to properly treat women, how to be a man, how to be able to put your work boots on when you're tired and go out and provide for your family, even when you're tired. Those right things to give a role model for your daughter and what to look forward into, so that way she's not indulging in toxic and crazy relationships when she becomes a woman. And, I think the court turns a cheek with that, and they don't really care. They don't give us anything. And they passed the act, and I thought it was going to be a great thing. I really did. I thought it was going to be a big game changer, but it just proved to me once again that it's all smoke. The system is really not for fathers. They're really not to support, that bigger purpose in life as a parent. And it's sad. So, I understand, like, even trying to go through the court thing, because it's still a never for sure thing, versus, and this is not woman bashing, but if you're a mother and you're taking that route, you know that you have a higher percentage chance to get the child support, to get the majority custody, to get, all of these things and these keys to disable that child's father. And it's a candle burning from two sides when a relationship don't work for a father, because you're going to have bare minimum time, you're going to have stipulations, they're going to drain your finances, and you're going to be forced to find a second job, you're going to be forced to lose time with your other kids, you're going to be forced to shut down and not be the person you need for your spouse. And it really does affect everything around you.
Yes, it does. Later on, I'll get with you on a situation I had with an ex. I'll summarize it real quick. He lived in Tennessee. His ex-wife and both his daughters lived in Michigan. Um, I I busted butt. I did my homework over and over and over. I wrote everybody from the senator to, I'm talking the highest courts that I could write. I wrote
Yep.
letters to the governor. I wrote it to every news station
Yep.
and about the situation. Needless to say, this was back in 2018,
Yep.
and he's had his youngest daughter ever since, and the mother pays child support. And I'm talking from Michigan to Tennessee.
See, and that's crazy. I've wrote
But
Governor
that's
DeSantos.
what it's.
I wrote Governor DeSantos 14 times. I never had a returned email. I wrote I don't know her title. Her name's Janet. She runs the child support division in the state of Florida. I've wrote her a bunch of times. I've wrote the president. I've wrote the White House. I've wrote the Commerce. I've wrote so many different people. And it was like, turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek. I never got anything from it. And, I used to have a big platform on TikTok. I had over 100,000 followers, 32 million views. And I was converting that into, a Father's Act move, and it just got shut down, and, it got canceled out. And, I've tried to reach out to like a higher source to try to empower my point of view, or just my case, because at that time I felt like I was fighting for my world, and it just felt like I was the only person on the planet, and I couldn't get no signal nowhere else.
Well, maybe we can get all these fathers together and stuff, and maybe try to see what we can do.
Well,
You
that's
know,
what I mean. If that could happen, I would love that. And a big part of it is fathers actually coming out, speaking, talking, acknowledging that, there's a bigger problem. Acknowledging that cards are stacked against you. But, the way the world is, you get enough people to stand up, you get enough people to show up and support that those laws can change, those views can change, and we can turn over something where it is, when you go through a divorce, you go through a separation or whatever, your child's not going to be alienated from you, and 50-50 should be the best interest for every child.
my thing is, and it always has been, and my dad raised me that way. All all the whole issue with children should be not only 50-50, but there should be no child support. It
No.
should be 50-50 down the line. When you have the child, you support and take care of them.
Yep.
When the mother has the child, she supports and takes care of them. What makes the man have to pay for her rent, her nails, her makeup, her hairdo? I'm very, very against the whole, you know, this. If she needs money for the child, she can pick up the phone and text message, hey, he needs a new pair of shoes. Do you mind helping?
Well, I feel like if that was the golden gate in the beginning, because, from my experience, I was never given those equals out of the beginning. So not getting that, I held so much hatred, so much resentment towards their mom, because it's like, how the fuck can you do this to me? How can you do this to my child? And I never let that go. I hated my son's mom to the day we had the conversation of what she did to me. She dropped the child support. It's equal custody. I can call him right now, say I'm on my way to pick him up. I can go greet her husband with a handshake. Her other kids love me. They come running out the house to come say hi to Dylan. They want big
See,
hugs. They want to fight.
that's the difference in that co-parenting
Yeah.
from that situation to your other situation.
With my other situation, it's crazy because it's so financial biased with her, because she knows that, I'm a parent and I pay for a lot of other things. I have other children, and she knows that that's what gets me. In our custody agreement, I pay almost 800 a month child support, $30,000 back child support. um, if I miss those payments, my license is suspended. It just happened last week. I just had to pay another $300 because they weren't taking the payments out of my checks. And I had to go to the DMV, take a day off of work, spend $300 to reinstate my license. But on top of that, she got the courts to agree to I pay half of all extra expenses on top of the almost $800 a month. And only me, not her, has to uphold a $100,000 life insurance policy. And the magistrate even looked at her and was like, well, what about you if something happens to you? And she goes, no, it's just him. And he signed off on it. He signed that paper saying that he has to pay almost $800 a month. He has to pay $30,000 back child support. He can never claim taxes for his other kids because she's going to get all his tax money, even though he may need that to reimburse his house for his other children. But we're going to give it to her. And any extra activities or any other extra expenses, I have to pay half of. If I don't, I get penalized in court. They put a junction in on me, and I get fined, or I may lose temporary rights, or however they want to stipulate those consequences.
Yeah, we definitely need to get resources together and kind of everybody that you start meeting up with and talking and stuff, because I mean that alone puts mental health
It,
in dire needs. I mean
it,
that's
that, and I can openly say this because of what I'm trying to do. I do have a great life. I try to make it the best I can, but as the burden of being the sole provider of my home, knowing that so much has to go out to a bitter woman who can't understand the better value of this, I have to put in extra work. I have to miss more time. My daughter is about to come. I would have loved to take 2 weeks off to help bond with my daughter and take care of my fiance, to make sure she's healthy, make sure she heals properly. I can't do that. I can only take a day or two off to make sure she gets out of the hospital okay and gets home. And it that's a it it's just so effective, and it hurts so bad, and the burden that carries more. Like, I have to support, her household. Now I have to support my household, which she's not considerate of. I'm about to have 6 children in my household. That's a lot, in which I take it gratefully. I love my kids. They're all fed. They're all good. But, she don't care because it's selfish bitterness. She just wants to check. She hates me. It's her issues with me. And, her new boyfriend now is a cop. So she has a big, high case of entitlement. I've had problems with her boyfriend, showing up, beating on my door. His cop buddies riding by my house. I had to move from my house because we were going to get into an altercation over it. And, it was just it is a very bad toxic situation, and it's a lot. It carries a lot of stress on me because I every day have to wake up and think, if I don't pay this money, I lose my license, I lose the ability of providing for my home. And it's a constant worry because I do struggle with anxiety and I do overthink a lot. But I think now it's more common with men more than we ever realized that, shoot, all of us are really overthinkers. All of us are really filled with anxiety. We just never knew how to identify it. And you
Right.
know that's a tough one.
That is true. That is true. I read, what was that I was, let's see. So this was the statistics on breaking the stigma of men's mental health. Somebody had put out kind of a blog about said mental health is a crucial part of our overall well-being, yet it remains a topic that is often misunderstood, stigmatized, and overlooked, especially for men. For
Hmm.
far too long, men have been expected to suppress their emotions, to tough it out, to soldier on through even difficult times. And
Hmm.
this resulted in a significant gap in our understanding of men's mental health needs and an alarming disparity in rates of suicide, substance abuse, and other mental health issues among men. And that is so true because it says men are more likely to die by suicide than women. In the United States alone, men account for nearly 70% of all suicides.
Yep. And just really trying to hit different points for other people. Um, with what my son's mom has done with me to my youngest son, and what I didn't really understand until not too recent, in which I don't think she'll ever understand, is that from what she has caused has built so much animosity in between us, and it makes me harvest so much hatred, which I don't like holding. I don't want to hold it, but I feel I can't do anything with it because she's unwilling to see that. So, and how that affects my parenting is that I have so much hatred towards her. I don't call my son every day like I should. That's a real problem because I don't talk to my son every day, and that brings more pressure to me. That brings more depression to me. It's not that I don't want to talk to my son, it's just that I don't want to dial her number because I completely despise what she has created for me and my son. And these are true effects of these problems. And a lot of people may not admit to that. And it doesn't make me a bad father. It doesn't make anybody else a bad father because you don't make those phone calls all the time, because there are things that hinder you from it. That's okay. But acknowledging these things and trying to make that difference, I feel would, trying to reverse it, we can avoid that, where it can be comfortable again, where we can comfortably call and hey, I want to talk to my son, or hey, I want to talk to my daughter. If we could eliminate those things that are problematic in between them, and that help break down those other households, we can let go and heal from a lot of things and ultimately be better for our kids. My youngest son loves me to death. It don't matter what we're doing. We could be sleeping in a box. As long as he's beside his daddy, that boy is happy. But and it kills me. I talk to him as much as I can, but I do find myself in moments where it's past that limitation time where I can't call after a certain time. It's like, man, I want to talk to him, but it's hard for me to even dial that number, knowing that she's micromanaging my son, micromanaging what we're talking about, trying to find anything to use against me in court. And it just makes an endless revolving cycle.
Now that I understand that, I've heard others go through it. Just stay on top of communication with him,
Yeah.
because he looks back, he's not going to understand, well, I didn't want to dial your mom's number. I
Yeah.
really just want to talk to her.
Yeah.
Because then it still reflects on him. Well, why should that matter? Couldn't you have texted her and said, hey, have her call me?
Yeah.
And he just do what you can, even if it's for a 2 second, call. Hey, buddy, just calling to say, your dad
Yeah,
left.
no, and and I do, and I try to do that, but I just, on
I know,
this right here, I want to openly express that, that is a challenge, and I'm sure other people have faced that challenge, and that's a hard one to beat. You really have to overcome yourself to dial that phone sometimes, even though it's, you should, and you want to, and your son or your daughter deserves that from you, but it's just that stomach feeling of what you have been put through, of even dealing with that other person, and
right.
it becomes conflictive, and it does take a toll on your parenting, which I've acknowledged that, and it's something that I had to, I have to challenge, I have to face, and I do have to remind myself, because it's just a battle, and that's another problem that a lot of men don't openly express or confront, and that's something that I had to confront myself in, so that way I can make those calls, that way I can, communicate more with him while he's over there.
I had read on some statistics that though men account for, I'm just going to read it, it'll make it easier. Though men account for about 10% of patients with bulimia or anorexia, which is something that you don't even associate men, associate girls with. Men with an eating disorder are less likely to seek professional help. Do you know over 6 million men suffer from depression per year? 6 million. But male depression often goes undiagnosed. More than 3 million men in the U.S. have panic disorders, arachnophobia, agoraphobia. Sorry, I don't know what arachnophobia, or any other phobias. That goes back to what you were just saying. Um, let's see, you cut out. And we're waiting on Dylan to reconnect. Okay, we lost Dylan. We are going to pause for a second. See if we can get him back in here. See if we can get him back in here.